March 1944, Fort Huachuca, Arizona. A black Army nurse stands before a hospital bed. The patient wears a German uniform with a swastika armband. An American officer gives the order, "You treat the Nazis first." She can't believe what she's hearing. Behind her, in a separate facility, wounded American soldiers, her countrymen, are denied her care. This is her war. This is America's contradiction. The desert sun beats down on a segregated Army training facility. Inside the barracks, women in crisp military uniforms practice bandaging techniques, study anatomy charts, memorize medication dosages. These are America's black Army nurses. There are only 300 of them in the entire Army Nurse Corps. 300 black women among 40,000 white nurses. Getting here meant beating impossible odds. It meant being twice as good to be considered half as qualified. It meant believing that service to country would transcend the color line. They believed it. They were about to learn otherwise. The training is rigorous. 6-day weeks, 14-hour days. Military discipline combined with medical precision. They learn to treat gunshot wounds, perform emergency surgery, manage shock and blood loss. They study tropical diseases, cold weather injuries, chemical exposure protocols. They drill in gas masks. They practice triage under simulated combat conditions. Every one of them volunteers for this. Every one of them wants to serve wounded American soldiers overseas. They imagine field hospitals in France, aid stations in Italy, evacuation ships in the Pacific. They imagine saving American lives. They raise their right hands and take the oath. I will faithfully perform my duties as a member of the Army Nurse Corps. They mean every word. The orders arrive in late March. Deployment assignments. The women gather around the bulletin board, searching for their names, their destinations. There's excitement, nervous energy. This is what they trained for. Then confusion. The assignments don't list combat zones. They list locations in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, prisoner of war camps, POW hospitals, German prisoner facilities. One nurse asks the obvious question, "We're going to treat prisoners?" The training officer nods. German prisoners of war. Another nurse speaks up. "What about American soldiers? When do we get assigned to treat our own troops?" The officer's face remains expressionless. "You won't be treating American soldiers. Army policy prohibits Negro nurses from providing care to white American personnel." The words hang in the air like poison gas. Someone asks him to repeat it. He does, slowly, clearly. "You will be assigned to provide medical care to German prisoners of war. You will not be assigned to treat white American soldiers. Those are your orders." The room goes silent. 300 black women trained to save American lives, forbidden from touching white American skin, assigned instead to heal the enemy who fought for Hitler, the enemy who wore swastikas, the enemy who believed in Aryan supremacy and racial purity. The moral inversion is staggering. These women are American citizens. They volunteered to serve. They passed every test, met every standard, exceeded every expectation. And now they're being told they're good enough to treat Nazis but not good enough to treat American GIs. The message is clear. In the U.S. Army's hierarchy of human value, enemy German soldiers rank above black American women. The nurses stand there processing this information. Some cry, some rage, some go numb. All of them feel the betrayal. But they're soldiers now. They have orders. They will follow them. The statistics tell the story. In 1944, the Army Nurse Corps has approximately 40,000 nurses. Only 300 are black. That's less than 1%. Of those 300, the vast majority are assigned not to combat hospitals, not to evacuation units, not to field stations treating American wounded. They're assigned to prisoner of war facilities. They're assigned to treat captured Germans. The Army's logic is twisted but consistent. Segregation must be maintained. White soldiers cannot be treated by black nurses. That would violate the racial order. But German prisoners? They're already defeated, already captured, already stripped of dignity, so they can be treated by black nurses. The Army sees no contradiction. The nurses see nothing but contradiction. The transport trucks arrive to take them to their assignments. The journey from Fort Huachuca to the POW camp takes 6 hours. The nurses sit in the back of covered trucks bouncing over desert roads breathing dust. They talk among themselves. The initial shock is giving way to anger. We're Americans, one says. Those are Nazis. Another responds, doesn't matter to the army. We're black first, American second. A third nurse, older, tries to find meaning. Maybe we can show them that we're professionals, that we're just as good as any white nurse. Someone laughs bitterly. Show who? The Germans? The army already knows we're good, they just don't care. The camp appears on the horizon. Barbed wire fences, guard towers, rows of barracks. American flags flying over a facility built to house enemy soldiers. The trucks pass through the main gate. German prisoners in work details stop to watch. Some stare with curiosity, some with contempt. The nurses stare back. This is their assignment. This is their war. The trucks stop outside the hospital building. A white officer waits for them. He's young, maybe 30, with the insignia of a captain. He doesn't smile. Welcome to Camp Florence, he says. You'll be providing medical care to enemy prisoners of war. Your quarters are separate from the main facility. You'll eat in a separate mess. You'll have no unauthorized contact with prisoners outside of medical duties. You will maintain military discipline at all times. Any questions? One nurse raises her hand. Sir, are there American soldiers at this facility? The captain shakes his head. American personnel are treated at separate facilities. She presses. Are there wounded American soldiers nearby who need care? He stiffens. There are American military hospitals in the region. They have adequate nursing staff. She doesn't back down. White nursing staff, sir? His jaw tightens. That's correct. Is there a problem, Lieutenant? She meets his eyes. No, sir. Just clarifying the situation. He dismisses them. They file into their quarters. Separate, segregated. Second-class soldiers in their own army. The first day. The nurses enter the POW hospital ward. It's a long room with rows of beds. Wounded German soldiers lie in clean sheets. Some are recovering from combat injuries. Some from accidents in the camps. Some from illnesses. They look up as the black nurses enter. The reactions vary. Some show surprise. Some show disgust. Some show nothing. One German prisoner, a young soldier with a bandaged leg, speaks in broken English. Schwarze? Black? He looks at the guard. Schwarze nurse? The guard shrugs. That's right, Fritz. Get used to it. The head nurse, a woman named Lieutenant Davis, addresses her staff. We are Army nurses. We will perform our duties with professionalism and excellence. We will provide the same quality of care we would provide to anyone. We took an oath. That oath doesn't change based on who we're treating. She assigns patients. The nurses move through the ward. They check vital signs, change dressings, administer medications, update charts. They do their jobs. Some German prisoners cooperate. Some resist. One refuses to let a black nurse touch him. He shouts in German, then in English. Nicht, no, not her. The guard intervenes. You don't get a choice, pal. She's your nurse. You'll take your medicine or you'll face disciplinary action. The nurse approaches calmly. Her name is Lieutenant Johnson. She's 26 years old, trained at Friedman's Hospital in Washington, D.C., top of her class. She speaks quietly. I'm going to check your wound now. You can cooperate or not. Either way, I'm doing my job. The German prisoner turns his face away. She removes his bandage. The wound is infected. She cleans it, applies sulfa powder, rebandages it. She does it perfectly. She does it with the same care she'd give anyone. When she's finished, she updates his chart and moves to the next patient. The German prisoner says nothing, but his wound will heal because of her skill. The first shift ends. The nurses return to their quarters. They're exhausted. Not from the physical work, they trained for that. They're exhausted from the emotional labor, from maintaining professionalism in the face of contempt, from serving people who see them as inferior, from representing their country to people who fought against it, while their country treats them as second-class citizens. They sit in their segregated mess hall eating dinner. One nurse breaks the silence. I joined to help American soldiers. Another responds. We all did. A third adds. Instead, we're healing Nazis. The first nurse shakes her head. Not Nazis. Not all of them. Just German soldiers. Someone else speaks up. Some of them are Nazis. I saw the SS tattoos. The conversation dies. They finish eating in silence. The routine establishes itself. Wake at 0600. Breakfast in the segregated mess. Report to the POW hospital at 700. 12-hour shifts. Treat German prisoners. Change dressings. Administer medications. Monitor recoveries. Assist with surgeries. Provide professional medical care to enemy soldiers. Return to quarters at 1900. Dinner in the segregated mess. Write letters home. Sleep. Repeat. Day after day. Week after week. The work itself isn't the problem. They're good at the work. They're excellent at the work. The problem is everything surrounding the work. The cafeteria situation crystallizes the absurdity. German prisoners of war eat in the same dining facility as white American staff. They sit at different tables, but they're in the same room. They're served the same food. They breathe the same air. But black American nurses, they eat separately, in a segregated facility. The Army's logic: enemy Germans can share space with white Americans. Black Americans cannot. The nurses see this every day. They watch German prisoners walk into the main cafeteria. They walk to their own segregated mess. The message is clear. The message is constant. The message is crushing. It gets worse. The nearby town of Florence, Arizona, operates under Jim Crow laws. German prisoners of war, when granted supervised recreation time, can enter establishments marked whites only. They're white after all. Enemy combatants, yes, but white. Black American nurses cannot enter those same establishments. They're American citizens. They're Army officers. They're serving their country. But they're black, so they're excluded. German POWs can sit at lunch counters where black nurses cannot. German POWs can use restrooms marked whites only, while black nurses must find colored facilities. The absurdity is total. The humiliation is intentional. The buses make it even clearer. When German prisoners are transported for medical appointments or work details, they ride in the front of civilian buses. Army regulations require it. They're under guard, and guards sit in front. Black nurses riding those same buses must sit in the back. Jim Crow law supersedes military rank. A German prisoner of war sits in front. An American Army nurse sits in back. Both are on the same bus. The German is a captured enemy. The nurse is a commissioned officer. The German sits in front. The nurse sits in back. Because he's white. Because she's black. Because that's America in 1944. The nurses document everything. They write letters home. They keep diaries. They talk among themselves. One nurse writes to her mother, "We're good enough to serve, but not good enough to serve our own." Another writes to her sister, "I treat German soldiers all day. Some of them hate me because I'm black. I have to treat them anyway." Meanwhile, American soldiers in the hospital next door, I can see the building from our ward. I'm not allowed to help them. I'm not allowed to even enter that building. A third writes to her brother, serving in a segregated unit in Italy, "You're fighting for freedom over there. I'm fighting for dignity over here. We're both in the same war, just different fronts." The families respond with pride and outrage. Pride in their daughters, sisters, wives who serve with such professionalism. Outrage at the system that treats them so shamefully. But what can they do? It's wartime. It's the Army. It's America. The nurses are caught in a web of contradictions. They're patriots serving a country that doesn't fully accept them. They're healers forced to prioritize enemies over countrymen. They're professionals subjected to amateur racism. They're soldiers fighting a war on multiple fronts, against the Axis abroad, against segregation at home, against daily humiliation in their own ranks. But they don't break. They build solidarity instead. In the evenings, after shifts, they gather in their quarters. They share experiences. They support each other. They laugh when they can. They cry when they must. They remind each other why they're here, not for the army that segregates them, not for the country that discriminates against them, for each other, for their communities, for the future, for the principle that they have every right to serve, and they'll prove it through excellence. They'll be so good that denial becomes impossible. They'll be so professional that prejudice looks foolish. They'll maintain such high standards that the system's failures become obvious. And they do. Their performance is impeccable. Zero disciplinary issues. Perfect attendance. Flawless medical records. Every patient treated with skill and care. Every procedure performed to the highest standard. Every chart meticulously maintained. The white officers supervising them can find no fault. The German prisoners, even those initially hostile, receive excellent care. The nurses' competence is undeniable. Their professionalism is unquestionable. Their excellence is irrefutable. They're proving something, not to themselves. They already knew. They're proving it to a system that doubted them. They're creating a record that history cannot ignore. The German prisoners themselves present complications. They're not a monolith. Some are committed Nazis, true believers in Hitler's ideology. Some are career soldiers who fought for Germany without embracing Nazi doctrine. Some are conscripts who had no choice. Some are young men who believed propaganda. Some are older men who knew better but followed orders anyway. The nurses must treat all of them. A wounded SS officer with death camp tattoos. A teenage Wehrmacht soldier who cries for his mother. A Luftwaffe pilot who shows respect. A submarine crewman who refuses to make eye contact. All of them are patients. All of them receive care. One case stands out. A young German soldier, maybe 20 years old, badly wounded in combat. Shrapnel in his chest and abdomen. He arrives at the POW hospital in critical condition. Lieutenant Davis leads the surgical team. 3 black nurses working to save a German soldier's life. They work for 6 hours. They remove shrapnel, they repair damaged organs, they transfuse blood, they stabilize him. He survives. When he wakes up days later, he sees Lieutenant Davis checking his chart. He speaks in broken English. You saved me? She nods. We did our job. He's quiet for a moment. Then, thank you. You are good nurse. Very good. She meets his eyes. Yes, I am. That simple exchange contains multitudes. He expected incompetence because of her race. He received excellence. His prejudice met reality. Reality won. It's a small moment. One German soldier learning one lesson, but it's repeated across the ward. German prisoners arriving with assumptions about racial inferiority. German prisoners receiving care that contradicts those assumptions. German prisoners forced to reconcile Nazi ideology with the evidence before them. Black nurses demonstrating skill, intelligence, professionalism, and humanity. Some prisoners cling to their prejudices. Some begin to question them. Some abandon them entirely. An older Wehrmacht soldier, a career military man, has a longer conversation with one of the nurses. His English is better. He's been a prisoner for 8 months. He's seen how the camp operates. He's noticed the segregation. He asks the nurse about it. She explains. Army policy, separate facilities for black personnel, no mixing of races. He's genuinely confused. But you are American, yes? You are soldier, officer? She confirms. He shakes his head. In Germany, we are told Americans are weak because of race mixing. But here, you separate. Like we do. Like the Nazis do. She doesn't respond immediately. Then, yes, like you do. America has its own racial problems. We're working on them. He considers this. You treat us very well. Better than we treated anyone. She looks at him directly. That's the difference. That's the difference. The nurses maintain their humanity in circumstances designed to strip it away. They provide excellent care to people who believe them inferior. They demonstrate professionalism in the face of contempt. They uphold their oaths when it would be easier to cut corners. They represent the best of American ideals while experiencing the worst of American reality. They're living contradictions, second-class citizens performing first-class service. They're proof that the system is wrong. Every perfectly executed procedure, every life saved, every patient healed, every shift completed with excellence. It's all evidence. Evidence that segregation is irrational, evidence that racism is false, evidence that they deserve full equality. Christmas 1944 arrives. The war in Europe continues. American forces are pushing through France. The Battle of the Bulge is raging. American soldiers are dying in frozen forests. And in Arizona, black nurses are preparing Christmas dinner for German prisoners of war. The irony is not lost on anyone. The prisoners are allowed to celebrate. They sing German Christmas carols. They receive Red Cross packages. They're treated according to Geneva Convention standards. They're enemy combatants being treated humanely. Meanwhile, the black nurses work through the holiday. They're American soldiers being treated as separate and unequal. In the evening, after their shifts, the nurses gather in their own quarters. They sing their own carols. Silent Night, O come all ye faithful, Joy to the world. The same songs the German prisoners sang, but in English. The same melodies celebrating the same holiday. Different languages, different circumstances, same humanity. One nurse comments on it. We're all singing about peace on earth, goodwill toward men. But there's no peace here, no goodwill. Another responds, maybe that's why we keep singing, because we believe it's possible, even when everything says it's not. The new year brings news from Europe. The concentration camps are being discovered. Auschwitz, Bergen-Belsen, Dachau. The full horror of the Nazi regime is revealed. The industrial murder of 6 million Jews. The systematic extermination of Roma, disabled people, political prisoners, homosexuals. The death camps, the gas chambers, the crematoria. The evidence is overwhelming. The evil is undeniable. And the black nurses are treating German soldiers, some of whom may have participated, some of whom certainly knew, some of whom believed in the ideology that justified it all. The nurses process this information. They're horrified like everyone else. They're sickened by the photographs, the testimonies, the evidence, and they're treating the people who made it possible. Not all of them, certainly. Most of the prisoners in the camp are regular Wehrmacht soldiers, not SS guards or camp administrators. But some might be. And even those who weren't directly involved fought for a regime that committed these atrocities. The nurses discuss it among themselves. Can they continue to provide care? Should they? What does their oath mean in the face of genocide? Lieutenant Davis addresses the question directly. We're not judges. We're not executioners. We're nurses. We treat the wounded. That's our job. That's our oath. The Nazis abandoned humanity. We won't. That's what makes us different. That's what makes us better. We'll provide the same excellent care we've always provided, not because they deserve it, because we're professionals, because we maintain standards even when others don't, especially when others don't. The nurses accept this. It's not easy, but it's right. They'll be better than the system that segregates them. They'll be better than the enemy they're treating. They'll maintain their humanity when everyone else seems to be losing theirs. Spring 1945. The war in Europe is ending. Germany is collapsing. Hitler is dead. The surrender is imminent. The POW camps are filling with new prisoners. More wounded. More defeated. More Germans who fought for a lost cause. The nurses continue their work. They've been doing this for over a year now. They're exhausted. Not physically, they're strong. Emotionally, spiritually. The daily grind of professional excellence in the face of systematic humiliation. The constant reminder that they're good enough to heal enemies but not good enough to heal their own countrymen. The unrelenting message that their country values them less than it values captured Nazis. But something is changing. Slowly. Imperceptibly at first. Then more obviously. The army is feeling pressure. Black soldiers have served with distinction in every theater. The Tuskegee Airmen have proven themselves in combat. Black infantry units have fought bravely in Europe and the Pacific. Black nurses have maintained impeccable records in the most difficult assignments. The evidence is overwhelming. Segregation is not only unjust, it's inefficient, it's wasteful, it's indefensible. The military is beginning to recognize this, not out of moral awakening, out of practical necessity. They need every capable person. They can't afford to waste talent based on skin color. In July 1945, some black nurses receive new orders. They're being transferred, not to more POW camps, to regular army hospitals, to treat American soldiers, white American soldiers. The policy is changing, not officially, not publicly, but quietly, gradually, the absolute prohibition is softening. Some black nurses are being allowed to do what they should have been allowed to do all along, serve their countrymen. It's a small victory. It comes too late for many. But it's a victory nonetheless. The nurses who receive these orders feel vindication mixed with bitterness. They're finally being recognized. But it took 2 years of proving themselves. 2 years of treating enemies while being denied the chance to treat friends. 2 years of excellence under humiliation. And now, finally, acknowledgement. The nurses remaining at the POW camps continue their work. The German prisoners are being processed for repatriation. The war is over. They'll be sent home eventually. Before they leave, some of them seek out their nurses. They want to say goodbye. They want to say thank you. One prisoner, the young soldier whose life Lieutenant Davis saved, approaches her. He's recovered fully. He's gained weight. He looks healthy. He speaks carefully. "Lieutenant Davis, I want to thank you. You saved my life. You treated me with respect when I did not respect you. I was wrong. I believed things that were not true. You showed me I was wrong. I will remember this. I will tell people in Germany. I will tell them about the Black American nurses who treated us with dignity we did not deserve." Lieutenant Davis accepts his thanks. She doesn't smile. She doesn't offer easy forgiveness. She simply says, "I hope you learned something. I hope you'll be better." He nods. "I will try." He extends his hand. She shakes it. It's a small gesture, but it represents something larger. A German soldier who arrived believing in racial superiority. A German soldier leaving with that belief shattered. Not through violence, not through punishment, through the simple demonstration of competence and humanity by a black woman he was taught to see as inferior. It's a quiet victory, but it's a real one. Other prisoners have similar conversations. Not all of them. Some leave still clinging to their prejudices. Some leave unchanged, but some leave transformed. They encountered black nurses expecting incompetence. They received excellence. They expected inferiority. They experienced professionalism. They expected to confirm their biases. Instead, their biases were challenged. Some of them will return to Germany and tell stories. Stories about the Black American nurses who treated German prisoners with skill and dignity. Stories that contradict Nazi propaganda. Stories that demonstrate the falseness of racial ideology. The nurses didn't set out to educate their enemies. They set out to do their jobs. But in doing their jobs excellently, they accomplished something more. The war ends. The prisoners go home. The camps begin to close. The nurses receive their discharge papers. They return to civilian life. They return to an America still segregated, still discriminatory, still unjust. They served their country. They proved their competence. They maintained the highest standards under the most difficult circumstances. And they return to a country where they still can't vote in some states, where they still face discrimination in housing, employment, education, where they're still treated as second-class citizens. The uniform comes off. The segregation remains. But they don't forget. They document their experiences. They write memoirs. They give interviews. They tell their stories. Not immediately, for years, decades even. Their service is largely unrecognized. The history books don't mention them. The war documentaries don't feature them. The monuments don't honor them. They're invisible. Again, still, but they keep telling their stories. To their families, to their communities, to anyone who will listen. Because their stories matter. Because their service matters. Because the truth matters. Slowly, very slowly, recognition comes. In the 1990s, historians begin researching black nurses in World War II. The oral histories are collected. The documents are archived. The photographs are preserved. The story emerges. 300 black army nurses, most assigned to treat German prisoners of war, forbidden from treating white American soldiers, subjected to segregation in their own military, experiencing the absurdity of enemy Germans receiving better treatment than black Americans, and through it all, maintaining professional excellence, providing impeccable care, proving their competence beyond any doubt. In 1993, a major historical exhibition features their story. Survivors are interviewed. Their service is finally acknowledged publicly. They're elderly now in their 70s and 80s, but they remember everything. They remember the shock of their assignments. They remember the daily humiliations. They remember the German prisoners. They remember the segregated facilities. They remember the bitter irony of healing enemies while being forbidden to heal friends. And they remember their determination, their refusal to be broken, their insistence on excellence, their quiet resistance through professional competence. One surviving nurse interviewed at age 78 summarizes it. "We were patriotic Americans treated as second-class citizens. We volunteered to serve our country. We wanted to help American soldiers. Instead, they sent us to treat Nazis. They told us we weren't good enough to touch white American skin, but we were good enough to treat the enemy. The message was clear. We were less valuable than German prisoners of war. But we didn't let that stop us. We did our jobs. We did them excellently. We proved what we always knew. We were just as capable as any white nurse. Better even. Because we had to be. We had to be twice as good to be considered half as qualified. So we were. We were excellent. And eventually, they had to admit it. Another survivor adds, "It shouldn't have taken proving. We shouldn't have had to demonstrate our competence. We shouldn't have been segregated in the first place. But that was America in 1944. That was the Army in 1944. We were fighting two wars, the war against the Axis and the war against segregation. We won both, eventually. But it took time. It took sacrifice. It took a lot of black people serving with excellence despite being treated terribly. We were part of that. We're proud of that. But we're also angry about it. We're angry it was necessary. We're angry it took so long. We're angry that recognition came decades after our service. The historical reckoning continues. In 2019, legislation is proposed to award the Congressional Gold Medal to black nurses who served in World War II. The legislation recognizes their service and sacrifice. It acknowledges the discrimination they faced. It honors their professionalism and excellence. It's a symbolic gesture. It doesn't undo the past. It doesn't erase the humiliation. But it matters. It matters that the country finally acknowledges what was done to them. It matters that their service is officially recognized. It matters that the historical record is corrected. What does their story reveal? It reveals America in 1944, a country fighting fascism abroad while practicing racism at home, a country proclaiming liberty while enforcing segregation, a country that valued enemy Germans above black citizens, a country that sent black nurses to heal Nazis while forbidding them to heal American soldiers. The contradiction is total. The hypocrisy is complete. But the story also reveals something else. It reveals the black nurses who served anyway, who maintained their dignity, who insisted on excellence, who refused to be broken by a system designed to break them. They were agents of change, not through dramatic gestures, through quiet competence, through daily professionalism, through accumulated excellence. They created a record that couldn't be denied. They demonstrated capabilities that couldn't be dismissed. They proved that segregation was irrational, inefficient, and unjust. Their service became evidence used in the fight for military desegregation, evidence cited when Executive Order 9981 was issued in 1948, integrating the armed forces, evidence that helped dismantle Jim Crow. They didn't do it alone. They were part of a larger movement, but they were an important part, an often overlooked part, a part that deserves recognition. The moral of their story is complex. It's not a simple tale of triumph over adversity. It's not a feel-good narrative of progress. It's a story about the cost of racism, the waste of segregation, the absurdity of valuing enemies above citizens based on skin color. It's a story about black women who served a country that didn't fully value them, who healed people who saw them as inferior, who maintained professionalism in the face of contempt, who proved their worth to people who should never have doubted it. It's a story about dignity maintained under impossible circumstances, about excellence as resistance, about quiet heroism in the face of systematic injustice. They treated the Nazis first. That was the order. That was the policy. That was America in 1944. Black Army nurses healing German prisoners of war while forbidden from treating white American soldiers. The inversion was complete. The message was clear, and the nurses responded with excellence. They did their jobs. They did them perfectly. They proved themselves, not because they should have had to, but because they refused to accept the system's judgment of their worth. They knew their value. They demonstrated it daily, and eventually, the country had to acknowledge it. Their legacy endures. Every black nurse serving today, every black doctor, every black medical professional. They stand on the shoulders of those 300 women who served in World War II, who faced discrimination and responded with competence, who experienced humiliation and maintained dignity, who were told they weren't good enough and proved otherwise. The path they walked was hard. The treatment they received was unjust. But they walked it anyway. They served anyway. They excelled anyway. And in doing so, they changed America. Slowly, gradually, One perfectly executed procedure at a time. One life saved at a time. One prejudice challenged at a time. This is their story. The story of Black Army nurses in World War II. The story of women who treated Nazi prisoners while forbidden from treating American soldiers. The story of excellence under segregation. The story of dignity under discrimination. The story of patriots serving a country that treated them as second-class citizens. The story of healers who maintained their humanity when everyone around them seemed to be losing theirs. This is American history. Uncomfortable, complicated, essential. This is the story of you treat the Nazis first, and the Black Army nurses who followed that order with professionalism that shamed the system that gave it.